Welcome back. All right, so here's a career of a goaltender who got hot at the right time and ended up winning himself a Stanley Cup, thus the Chicago Blackhawks jersey. And I thought now was a good time to make this video because at the time I'm recording this, we have Vegas in the final against the Florida Panthers. Bobrovsky, very expensive goaltender who gets hot at the right time going into the final. And at the other end, you have Adin Hill, a goaltender who arguably is, fourth string for Vegas, if everybody's healthy and playing. But he's the goalie. He's the guy. And so Antti Niemi was undrafted. He signed at age 24, age 25, around there. May 5th, 2008. I think it was before his 25th birthday. But he signs as a free agent with the Chicago Blackhawks. And there wasn't any big deal made of this. And again, right now at the time I'm recording this, it is European signing season where NHL teams sign European players, usually in their mid-20s, and some of them hit, some of them don't. That first year, 2008-2009, he plays 3 games, a record of 1-1-1 and an .864 save percentage. So, the numbers don't indicate that he's going to be the guy or that he's going to, necessarily be one of the top 2. However, 2009-2010, he plays well. 39 games, a record of 26-7-4, .912 save percentage. Now, interestingly enough, the Chicago Blackhawks bring in Cristobal Huet. Huet, the expectation is that he's going to be their goaltender going into the playoffs, but Niemi ends up taking the job. He ends up replacing him as the starter in the 2010 playoffs. And it works out pretty well for a goaltender that hadn't been in the playoffs in 2009. 2010, he has a good run. 22 games, a 16-6 record, .910 save percentage. There are shutouts in there. There are some really good games in there. And it is the Stanley Cup that is won by Chicago with Niemi at one end. At the other end, you have Philadelphia with multiple goalies being used in that run. And so the discussion coming out of that is, so do you need a premier number 1 goaltender, or can you just, ride a hot goalie? And that was the idea with Niemi, was he was a hot goalie. Now, 2010, there was a problem. Chicago ends up in some cap hell of their own making. And so we end up going to arbitration between Niemi and the Blackhawks. And I really think Chicago wanted to hold on to him at the right price. Well, the arbitrator awards $2.75 million for a single season to Niemi. Chicago, due to cap concerns they walk away. Now, we're going to get into arbitration season pretty soon here as well, and that's how that works. You sit down in front of an arbitrator, you argue your case, the other side argues their case, and then the arbitrator gives out an award. If the team walks away from that award, that player then becomes an unrestricted free agent. So, the summer of 2010, after they've won a Stanley Cup with Niemi as their starting goaltender, he had all 16 wins. We now have him as a free agent. And he's a free agent for a while that summer. And then on September 2nd, he signs as an unrestricted free agent with San Jose, the Sharks. No strangers to Finnish goaltending. 60 games played that first year with the Sharks, so he's the starter. 35 wins, which is 9th. 18 losses. 6 overtime losses in there. 920 save percentage. And in the playoffs, 18 games, 8-9 record, 896 save percentage. What I remember in the 2011 playoffs was Niemi had never lost a round. And that was through those first 2 rounds. It was, hey, Niemi's won 6 straight rounds to start his career. He's never lost a round. And then in the conference final, Niemi was taken out and the Sharks were taken out. So we go into 2011-2012. He plays 68 games, which is 5th in the NHL that year. 34 wins or 9th. His 22 regulation losses is 7th overall and 9 overtime losses in there as well. 915 save percentage. So his numbers are still pretty good, right? Not fantastic. He's not top 10 in those categories. And then in the playoffs, 5 games, a record of 1-4 and a 914 save percentage. So the mystique about him in the playoffs is kind of broken now, out in the first round and all that. But 2012-2013, which was a lockout shortened season of 48 games, Niemi plays a ton, makes up for lost time, still plays 43 games, which is 2nd overall in the NHL that year. His 24 wins led the NHL that year to go with 12 regulation losses and 6 overtime losses. His .924 save percentage, 7th in the National Hockey League. So that's his career year right there, right? 2012-2013. And then in the playoffs, it kind of continues. 11 games, a record of 7-4, .930 save percentage. So Niemi has quite the bounce back season. In fact, he's much better, I would argue, in 2013 than he'd been in 2010. Just he won a Stanley Cup in 2010, doesn't win that in 2013. So how do you follow it up? Well, 2013, 2014, he's a workhorse again. Plays 64 games, which is second overall in the NHL. His 39 wins were also second overall. 17 regulation losses, 7 overtime losses, 913 save percentage. So his save percentage comes down. In the playoffs, a record of 3-3 in 6 games, 884 save percentage. So again, he's playing a ton. He has some decent numbers. He's not top 10 in save percentage, but he's a good middle-of-the-road goaltender. Then 2014, 2015, 61 games played, 31 wins, 23 regulation losses, which is 7th in the NHL, to go with 7 overtime losses, 914 save percentage. No playoffs for him that year. And June the 27th, he is traded to the Dallas Stars for a 2015 7th-round pick. He wants some serious cash, and for Dallas, it's an interesting pick, and I still thought it was odd because he was coming off of an okay, not great year. And Dallas had Kari Lehtinen, who was coming off an okay, not great year, and then Niemi gets $4.5 million a year from Dallas with the expectation that he's going to share the net with Lehtinen. And the 2015-2016 season, again, interesting one. He plays 48 games for Dallas, a record of 25, 13, and 7, 905 save percentage. So that's a low save percentage. In the playoffs, he's 1-3 in 5 games with an 865 save percentage. Dallas, they wanted Lehtinen to be the starter, and there was some inconsistency there. I remember Niemi went in, he won that one game, and he looked good. And then there just wasn't that, they weren't able to maintain it. So Dallas with the 2 goaltenders, it's pretty obvious it doesn't work right out of the gate. 2016-2017, it gets worse. 37 games for him in Dallas, a record of 12, 12, and 4, 892 save percentage. So his stock is low. And going into the 2017 offseason, that means that somebody's going to try to sign him and get a bargain out of it. And it's Pittsburgh that decides to try to get the bargain out of it going into the 2017-2018 season. July the 1st, he signs as a free agent for the Penguins. Rough go of it with the Penguins. Absolutely brutal. 3 games played. He loses all 3. 797 save percentage. I believe it was 7.5 goals against per game he allowed. It was a miserable experience for him in Pittsburgh. So October 24th, Florida claims him on waivers. So he ends up playing 2 games in Florida, has 1 loss in those 2 games, 872 save percentage, and Florida ends up waiving him. On November 14th, he's claimed on waivers by the Montreal Canadiens. So he's been through Pittsburgh, terrible experience. Florida, not a good experience. Very few games played. He hasn't had a chance to redeem himself. At Montreal, he kind of does. 19 games played, a record of 7, 5, and 4, 929 save percentage. So that helps to, head off some of the ugliness. At least it covers up some of the ugliness of his numbers in Pittsburgh and Florida. But, his time in Montreal was good enough that they extended him. They gave him another year. And he played decently at times. He played 17 games in 2018-2019, a record of 8, 6, and 2. So he won half of his decisions, and an 887 save percentage. So he ends up signing June 5th of 2019 with Jokerit. Plays 1 season with Jokerit before his career as a goaltender is done. But he does have that 1 year in Europe. Ends up retiring as a National Hockey League goaltender. 464 games played, which is 90th on the all-time list. His 242 wins is 69th on the all-time list. 140 regulation losses, 57 overtime or shootout losses. So see, I was getting ahead of myself and saying overtime. But yeah, 57 of those, 912 save percentage, which is good. In the playoffs, 67 games, 36 and 29 record, and a 905 save percentage there. So his numbers are decent. The one thing, of course, and the reason for the Hawks jersey, he's remembered for that 2010 Stanley Cup win. He did get bronze at the 2014 Olympics. Did not play, but he was the backup for a number of games there, and so he ends up getting the bronze medal in 2014. So Niemi, not a top 5, top 10 goaltender, but again, I thought it was a topical career to look at because right now we have Adin Hill in the Stanley Cup final. kind of unexpected. And when Niemi led Chicago all the way to the final, hey, they picked up Hugh A at the deadline with the idea of, Hugh A being the guy, and he wasn't. So Niemi stepped in and did quite well in his stead. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.